Howdy folks, welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 7 of the mini bike build. There is a playlist of all these, so you can check that out in the description if you want to see everything that I've done so far. Today I'm going to be modifying the engine, actually tearing it apart. But before we get into that, I did want to address, I read your comments, and I know there have been a couple people that didn't really like the mini bike content thrown in there. They thought it was kind of weird for a musical channel, but there were some other people that really liked it. It's not changing the format of the channel, nothing like that. It's just this channel is dedicated to my hobbies. My main hobby is music, but it does say on my About page that my other hobbies as well. I'm a person that builds musical instruments and circuits, and I can tear an engine down and put it back together. So can you. And that's the whole function of this series, to show, like, if you don't have experience, can you build a mini bike in your garage? Yes, you can, because I did it. Anyway, let's get into it. This video is going to be a series of 4 mods that I did to the mini bike engine. So the first one was the intake manifold. That's not a performance mod. I didn't expect this to make any additional performance for the bike. It's just simply to tuck the carburetor back in by the frame, because I didn't really like the fact that it was sticking off to the side. In fact, I mentioned that in a previous video. And of course, this little intake manifold brought it right in. It keeps it out of the way. Looks great. I did a speed test with it afterwards. I did not expect it to be any faster, because it shouldn't increase the performance at all. But the bike hit 39 for some reason. I'm not sure why, because there's no reason it should have. But I think maybe it was just running a little different that day, and it just happened to be a little faster, because it was 38 prior to the mod. It was a little cooler day. I think it was just maybe running a little better. But anyway, the point is, it didn't slow down with that mod. I wanted to kind of do a speed test between each of the mods to kind of see what they did. So then I moved on to the connecting rod, and this is a very big job. To start off with, you have to get the engine off the bike. So that means you got to take the chain off, you got to take the clutch off, whole deal. You got to unbolt the engine from the bike, unbolt the exhaust bracket, all of that stuff, unhook all the electronics, and get that thing off the bike. And then you got to drain the oil out of it, because you're going to have to open the engine. So, that whole deal. And then take the side cover off. And then after I take the side cover off, then of course you pull the cam out to get access to the crank. Then you unbolt the rod cap, and that will allow you to remove the rod. But of course, what I wasn't thinking at the time was you can't remove the rod until you remove the crank. So that means you have to take the flywheel off. So then I had to remove the flywheel. So basically I've taken the whole bottom end apart at this point. And I removed the fuel tank at this time as well. Then I was able to kind of slide the piston down, get the wrist pin out, replace the connecting rod. The new billet connecting rod is beautiful. It looks great. It's got really nice insert bearings and everything. So then I put the new rod in there, and then did the torque spec. And it had a very odd torque spec. You need a good torque wrench with inch pounds, and you increase it like 20 inch pounds at a time, and you torque up to about 150, and then you loosen it back up, and then you torque up to 170, alternating back and forth like 20 inch pounds at a time. So you definitely want a good torque wrench to do this. Then of course you replace the cam, gasket, and put the side cover back on. So then after you install the side cover, of course, you can put oil in it and replace the blower housing. At this point, I decided to set the valve lash. And it turned out the valve lash from the factory was not well at all. Of course, I did take all that stuff apart, so it could have, come a little bit out, but it was not in spec. So it's a good thing I did that, but I tightened it up, used feeler gauges, and got it to where it's supposed to be. Then I went to reinstall the fuel tank, and at that point, it was when I realized that the fuel tank had actually broken. The studs had actually broken. So I had to get a new fuel tank, install that, and of course, new fuel line as well. But that's okay, because that allowed me to reposition the petcock where it was a little more centered on the curved intake, because of course the curved intake's a bit longer than the straight intake. So not a big deal. And I used some translucent fuel line so I could, see the fuel going through it. So that actually ended up to be kind of a bonus. Then of course at that point, put the engine back on the bike. So that was the next step. So I got the engine bolted back up, and everything back together, fired her up, and took her for another top speed run. So not really any surprise at this point. It was back to 38 miles an hour, which is what I would expect, because the connecting rod is not going to add any horsepower. There might be a little bit of weight difference, but it's not going to add any significant power to the engine. It's just there for in the future, as if you modify the engine more, then you've got a good strong connecting rod there, because that is the main kind of spot that takes the torque of the whole engine. Okay, so at this point, I had replaced the manifold, I had replaced the connecting rod, and now I wanted to get rid of that governed coil, because that governed coil is what's stopping it at 6,200 RPM. So I got a regular coil for it, an ungoverned coil, but I had to replace the flywheel at the same time because the governed flywheel doesn't work with the ungoverned coil and vice versa. Now, I didn't have to take it off of the bike this time, but I did have to take the old flywheel off, get the new flywheel, use some grinding compound to lap it. That's supposed to be a good practice, and then of course reinstall it. I did use an advanced timing key when I reinstalled it to give it just a little more timing as well, plus there's a little bit of timing built into the flywheel. So with the advanced timing key and the new flywheel, that should increase the power a little bit. Then I had to of course gap the coil. I didn't have a feeler gauge that was the right size, so I ended up using a couple of business cards that I measured that were just perfect. Then after the coil is properly gapped, you remove the clutch and chain and all of that, and I installed a crank holder. This was a new thing I had to buy, but I installed a crank holder so that I could torque the flywheel nut to spec. You want to make sure you torque that nut down, because that's the full power of the engine going into that flywheel. And of course I reinstalled the blower housing and hooked the wiring back up, and that baby was ready to fire up. Of course, one last thing that I did just because I had to, that ghost sticker that was on the engine was a little bit, it's kind of starting to peel off. So I went ahead and peeled that off and put a new sticker on it that says 212 Beast Mode, because now at this point we've unleashed the ghost. It is no longer governed. It's got a rod so that it can take the extra RPMs and that manifold to pull the carb in close to the frame. So good to go there. Took it for its top speed run, and at this point it did increase about 5 miles an hour due to no longer having the governed coil. So I did 2 different speed runs with it, both of them that were at 43. And to be honest, I'm not sure you want to go much faster with that on these tires. I think definitely it's going to need some street tires if I want to, take it any faster than that. So finally, I decided to take it for a spin around the neighborhood to test everything out, and boy, it really does run better. It really gets up and goes. It definitely woke up the ghost by taking off that governed coil. So to redo this, if you wanted to do this yourself, you effectively need 5 parts. You need the manifold, you need the rod, you need the flywheel, you need the coil, and then the advanced timing key. I mean, you don't have to do that, but I decided to do that anyway. The advanced timing, it does almost feel like it bogs just a little bit more off the line with the advanced timing, but once you get going, it definitely gives it a little more snap. So anyway, overall, I'm really happy with this project and the way it came out. And again, I'm just showing that an average everyday person can rebuild a small engine with no real experience. So there you go. If you like what I do on this channel, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. If you like this video, hit that like button, because that helps out the YouTube algorithm.